live streams to catch up. Perfect. So, welcome everybody to another episode of the Vaibhav Shetty Experience Beyond the Gloves, episode 6. A show where we talk to some of the best athletes in India. We talk about their journey in combat sports and behind the scenes. And with me today is Kazan Taleb. He is the reigning WBC Muay Thai India champion and the IBF Intercontinental champion. And if I am not mistaken, you're the very first Indian ever to hold the IBF belt in Muay Thai. Is that right?
That is.
Perfect. So I got my introduction right. So welcome to the show, Kazan, and thank you so much for being here. Great.
Thank you.
Uh, Perfect. So how does it feel, Kazan, holding two belts? You got a big target on your back right now.
That's probably true, but it feels good. It feels like it feels deserved. I've worked hard for this, so the target is. I kind of assumed it would happen at some point anyway.
Right.
There would be a target on my back.
There has to be a vision before you actually reach those belts. But just a few years ago, some people in India could never imagine holding gold like this. Right? There were no title belts coming into India, and all of a sudden we have these title shots, and you have two of them, and you are considered one of the better Muay Thai fighters in the country and possibly in Asia right now. And the goal is to be a world champion someday, right?
Absolutely.
Right. But yeah, absolutely. So when we were training, and I'm sure you were training, a few years ago, back then there was no vision. How did you get yourself in this position? Could you run us through the entire process?
A big part of it is having the vision, even though no one else has it around you.
Hmm.
You do need to have it yourself, uh, because I think beyond your belief in God, after that is belief in yourself. You need to have that, at least for me.
Uh-huh.
So that self belief is a very big part of it. So even when no one else saw it, I did.
Right. So
Yeah,
backing yourself, believing in yourself, that's absolutely important.
a
And
big part.
right, and as we see in every sport, right, there are always these rivalries. People always, even today, right, even look when you look at the goats, we look at Sachin Tendulkar, you look at Virat Kohli. People still compare. People still want to say one is better than the others or point out flaws in the game. And this happens to every sportsman. Have you faced any scenario like that right now? I'm sure people must be saying stuff.
If they are saying stuff, honestly, I'm not hearing it.
Uh huh.
Maybe they're saying it behind my back for good reason, you know.
Right.
But no, also I fought a lot of my career, especially early on. I fought a lot of it in Thailand.
Right.
And in Thailand, even if there is a rivalry, it's very healthy. It's very respectful.
Hmm.
There's very little trash talk. There's very little backbiting. It's kind of you prepare, you fight. One of you all
Hmm.
will win. One of you all will unfortunately lose, and then you go home.
Right.
Right. But in
Yes.
India, I've not faced any real rivalry. I mean, I think a few of the best fighters that exist in India. I mean, a few of them are my friends,
Hmm.
genuinely friends. So I don't know. I don't think they'll turn around and, and go after me. But who knows?
Right. No, I'm sure. Like you said, there are some really good fighters, and they are respectful of the other athletes around them because they've gone through the grind. But there's always this set of people who believe that they haven't received the opportunity, or somebody else has unfairly received an opportunity. Uh, if you've not faced that, I'm very glad you have not, and I hope you don't face such at all.
I won't.
But yeah, we touched upon your time in Thailand, and it's very interesting because right now we have a big crop of Indian athletes training in Thailand. We got Anish Shetty, we got Pratik Vats, we got Tai Nabam, we got Ashish Sethi. They're all living
Hmm.
and training there. But
Right.
when you were there training, right, this was unheard of for an Indian to go out there, train, and take up fights. How? I mean,
Hopefully,
were there any other Indians
no.
that you were aware of out there? No.
I was the only Indian in Phuket. Forget in the gym.
Okay.
There was no one else there. I
Uh-huh.
was in Phuket 11 years ago. 11 years
Wow.
ago, it was unheard of. When I came
Right.
back to India about 9 years ago, and I told my family and friends, family is always very supportive, but even friends, I told
Mhm.
them, I'm doing Muay Thai. I was the only one in the city at the time who knew what Muay Thai was. Nobody even knew what it was. Thai
Wow.
boxing was unheard of.
Right.
So to be fighting in Thailand, being as an Indian especially, it was not normal. It was not normal. Now it's the norm almost, at least in the martial arts world.
Right.
But back then, no.
Yeah, so what led you to take this up? Because 11 years ago, I mean, forget Muay Thai, even MMA was unheard of. Combat sports in general was restricted to what we saw in the Olympics, the boxers. People did not even know pro boxing back then, except for Muhammad Ali
Right.
and Mike Tyson, maybe. So what led you in that direction? Can you just run me through your mindset and what took you there?
So actually, I went to Thailand 11 years ago to Phuket. I went there for the first time. I mean, this is a bit of a personal story, but I'm happy to share it with you. I
Okay.
used to be I used to be an addict, a cocaine addict.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
so I was in a really, really bad place. And my family knew about it. My mother knew about it. My mother's always been my biggest support system. So I told her, "Ki, this is what I'm doing. This is the mischief I'm up to. I need to get out of this nonsense." And at that
Mhm.
time, I had no interest in martial arts, nothing of the sort. So my mother said, "Okay, you know what? Your brother and you get out of here because wherever you are right now, Bombay specifically at the time, it's too easily accessible. The friend circle was all into the same garbage that I was into." And she
Mhm.
said, go to Thailand because Thailand is the one place that you don't want to procure a drug. No, at least not back then in Thailand. Because if you do get arrested, you're in for life. You're never getting out. So
Mhm.
my mindset was almost if I go there, I know I won't do anything because I'm so scared of them arresting me.
Right.
But I happened to go there for a week, almost 10 days. And that was the plan to be there for 10 days. And my brother and I are just hanging around in Phuket and wondering what the hell are we going to do here for 10 days? I mean, I don't know what to do. How much
Mhm.
you going to sit on the beach? After a while, it gets boring. You need to do something.
Right.
So I was walking past Tiger Muay Thai at the time, and I was living in the area,
Mhm.
coincidentally. Walking past Tiger Muay Thai, and I said, "What is this Muay Thai stuff? Well, let me at least try out this stuff. At least something to do."
Right.
And I was supposed to be there for 7 days. I stayed for 2 years. So
Wow.
that's how it basically happened, and I got my life together. That was the
So
thing.
basically, Muay Thai saved your life.
Completely,
Wow.
completely.
Oh, that
It,
is
it,
amazing.
go
Thank you
ahead,
for
go ahead.
sharing the story. Thank you for sharing the story. I mean, that's amazing. And usually when I talk to combat sports athletes, I ask them, "What does the family think about you entering the sport?" I don't think I need to ask that question because I think the story answers what your family thought.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
My family is very, very genuinely, anything aside from the nonsense that I was up to was a good idea. Do anything, just not that. So they were okay. Yeah.
right. Wow. And from that position, from a cocaine addict back then 11 years ago. I'm sorry if I that hurts you, but that is what it was. And to where you are now, you're one of the best Muay Thai fighters in the country. You hold two of the most prestigious belts there are to hold. That is an amazing journey, and people don't know about it. Do you talk about this journey, or do you just go about your day as is?
I won't now. Obviously, I won't go out and say, "Oh, I used to be a cocaine addict." Obviously, I'm not going to do that. But if
Right.
if you do ask me a question about it, like you just did, and if it's genuinely coming from a sincere place, like for example, the way you asked the question, it was obviously sincere. So
Hmm.
then I will always answer it truthfully. And I
Right.
feel like someone's messing with me, like they know that I used to do this, and now they're just looking for a little. Then obviously I will ignore it. But no, I
Right.
will talk about it if people ask me about it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because
No.
it's a good way to get out of it. Martial arts
Right.
can it doesn't just change your life; it saves it. So
Right.
yeah,
No, that is. I mean, this there cannot be a better example than you right now. Because and this is something I did not expect this to come up in the show. And in a way, I'm happy as a podcast host that this came out, not just for my show, but for people who are watching. Right? I mean, this is an amazing inspirational story for people to actually follow. So thank you again for sharing that. So, so you were there for 2 years. Wow, that is insane. And in the 2 years, you trained and fought over there with Tiger Muay Thai.
yeah. For the first year, I primarily just trained because I had no martial arts experience. I'd
Right.
never trained a martial art in my life prior to that. I was 22. I'd
Hmm.
only ever played football. So fighting
Okay.
was a very scary prospect. Training was a brilliant prospect. I love to train. But
Right.
back then fighting was very scary. So I almost stayed away from the ring for the first year. People
Right.
would say, go. How people in Thailand are like, go. What's the worst that'll happen? You get knocked out. It's okay, go. And I was like, no, I don't want to get knocked out. I'm not going. So for the first year, I kind of just resisted going to the
Right.
ring. But eventually, I did fight that, and I
Mhm.
loved it. I loved it.
Right. There is this thing, right? I mean, it's about the culture out there. Out there, getting knocked out, it's just part of the game, part of everyday life. Whereas, we are brought up thinking that you get knocked out, that's a major deal. And I'm sure that mindset must have helped you a lot in that 1 year you trained over there.
Yeah, see, the thing is, it's a mix of both because I
Okay.
had the almost like the I took it, I didn't take it too seriously because I
Right.
had the Thai influence constantly telling me it's nothing to get overly worried about. So I did
Right.
not go completely crazy preparing for a fight, at least mentally.
Right.
But I also had the Indian mentality, which is a very conservative. Listen, you need to put food on the table. That's the most important thing. Don't worry about fighting all this stuff. So what it did, it
Right.
gave me a very healthy balance. I was not overly cautious at the same time. I was not reckless. So I
Right.
think that also that kind of like shows in my the way I fight as well.
Right.
I am not either of the two. I won't be
Right.
overly cautious at the same time. I won't be reckless.
Right. No,
Yeah.
perfect. That makes sense. And this brings me to a slightly different topic about the way athletes are. A lot of the best athletes I've faced around the world, and I've talked around the world, they have very high IQ, and they typically have another career along with the sporting career, because even if you are one of the best in the country or in the continent, unless you reach the world stage, and even then, unless you are selling tickets for a promotion, you don't really make money. People typically have a second line of income.
Right.
You obviously, the fact that you were able to go to Thailand just to get out of your cocaine habit, and the idea that you were able to live there for 2 years, means that you had some means of income out there. Whereas there are people who do fighting in India just to try and build a career out of desperation, and in the ring it shows. Did it affect your game in a way, or do you think it does affect your game in a way, having that not to having no worry about an income and just focusing on the fighting?
See, the thing is, when I first started fighting, I genuinely didn't have an income. Right? I
Okay.
was completely unemployed. I had no income. I was essentially doing it on based on the support of my family. My
Right.
family supported me. My mother, my father, my grandfather. At the time, they supported me, and they
Right.
were saying, "Listen, go do something."
Mhm.
Especially my mom and my dad.
Right.
But of course, as time has progressed, I mean, I have my own gym. I teach classes. So of course, the income is now very steady, very
Right.
mashallah, very healthy income. But back then, there was no income. It was
Okay.
basically if I did not have the blessings of my family, I would not be here. No chance.
Right.
I would have to leave in like 2 months for sure.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So when you enter a ring, right, and this even some of the best fighters who fight in the UFC or in the bigger promotions for Muay Thai, One FC, etc., right? They say that even after 100 fights, when they enter the ring, there is some level of nervousness that is there. There is some fear which is there, because they say the fear makes them sharp. It keeps them, aware in the ring. But a lot of people I speak to, especially in India, right, the idea of saying that I have a little bit of fear, that's taken negatively. So people say "नहीं, मुझे बिल्कुल डर नहीं लगता." Where do you stand on this spectrum?
See, anybody who says they don't feel fear is either a maniac or a liar. One of the
Right.
two, right? If you and there are some people who are genuinely maniacs. They actually don't feel fear. The problem with those guys is they don't make it very far because being a maniac, you're completely reckless, you're completely open, you don't worry about your defense, you get hit all the
Mhm.
time, and eventually your chin caves, and then you
Right.
can't take the punishment anymore.
Right.
So for me, the fear is always there, and the nervousness, that anxiety is always there. It's never
Mhm.
going. I fought a
Okay.
few times, a lot of amateur fights, few semi-pro fights, four
Mhm.
pro fights now. So the fear is never gone. I just find that with time and with experience, your ability to deal with the fear gets better.
Right.
You don't deal with it in that panic that you used to in the first fight. Where
Right.
you couldn't get off the stool, that panic is not there anymore. Today, when
Right.
my name is called, it's a very comfortable walk. Doesn't mean
Mhm.
that I'm not scared. Of course, I'm scared, but I'm not. It's not debilitating fear. It's very healthy because I know how to manage it now.
Right. Right. Perfect. So, I saw the last fight that you fought against Naveen Haryanvi, right?
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
for the
yeah.
WBC Muay Thai India title. And he was fairly new to the pro circuit, but a very good fighter. He had a very
Mhm.
good pedigree in kickboxing. There was a very major style difference between the two, and that was very apparent because you were a composed Muay Thai fighter throwing Muay Thai strikes, and he was a fighter who seemed to be excited to be at that stage and throwing a lot of good strikes, but a lot of them kickboxing strikes, and that style difference was apparent. Did it affect you in the way you would have gone about in the match?
No, honestly, not really, because
Uh-huh.
I've seen that style before. My
Okay.
fight in the IBF was also very similar to the way Naveen fought.
Uh-huh.
Because it was Naveen. He's not. I wouldn't say he's a volume striker. He isn't. He's
Mm-hmm.
more of a 3-4 shot striker, but it's heavy. Every shot is
Right.
heavy, right?
Right.
So with a guy like that, with all due respect to him, I mean, he's a good fighter and everything, but it's not a particularly it's not a technically hard fight to fight. Because
Okay.
I fought a lot of guys like that before. It's just that if you can't afford to get hit by a guy like that. If he lands, then it's a problem. Because then
Right.
it will wobble you. But the thing is, he didn't land. Everything was on my guard. Everything was defended easily. So it was not so bad. A couple of low kicks that he landed were very good. Though. Those were good. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And yeah, I did see those low kicks, and the thing about those low kicks were you were also checking quite a bit, and he was doing as much damage to himself as he was doing to you. Was it part of the strategy, or did it just come across as part of the game?
No, honestly, it was not part of the strategy. That
Okay.
would be me lying. He landed one on my inner thigh,
Hmm.
and because I fight very traditional Muay Thai with my
Yeah.
stance, my
Yeah.
my lead knee is not turned in; it's absolutely straight. So I
Right.
do have the inner thigh a little exposed, right?
Right.
So he landed one, and I felt okay. That one stung a bit, and he
Hmm.
landed the second one, and I thought, okay, now that one hurt a bit, but it was not hard defense to
Hmm.
do. I just figured I saw what happened when he landed the second one, and if I'm
Right.
not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, but I think I heard his coach screaming, "Yes, you got him." And I was
Right.
thinking in my head, no, 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 you are far from getting me. That's two low kicks. I've dealt with a lot more than that.
Right.
But I knew that I could see that he was excited to throw another one.
Right.
And prior to that, he wasn't really throwing any real inside low kicks. It was always on the outside, which I was always sliding away from. I was kind of
Right.
sinking my way out of them. But the
Right.
inside one surprised me. But after the second one, I figured, okay, he's super excited now to throw the third one. And I checked
Right.
the third one, and then
Hmm.
he kind of got. And I tend to do this sometimes in fights.
Uh-huh.
I kind of pointed at him and I laughed. I said, I got you now. And
Uh-huh.
he got a little bit more riled up when he tried to throw one again.
Right.
And that one I checked badly, and that was the end for it. Sorry.
Right. And that ended the fight. Right.
That was
So
the
yeah.
end.
Right. And his coach was very excited because I did get to speak to him later, and he immediately asked for a rematch.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, and he's a very good fighter. Possibly at one time, maybe he'll get a rematch, or maybe he'll. I suggested because he's a young fighter, he may even go for a state title first and then come back for this. But yeah,
Yeah.
hope the best of luck for him. But what I did
100%.
love is, yeah, what I did love is, it was competitive for both of you,
Yeah.
and unlike some of the other matches that happened in the past, it wasn't a major mismatch. So
No.
I know a lot of people who watched this loved watching this, and you handled it beautifully. You handled it the way a champion should handle, and yeah, we loved watching it. Uh, Going ahead, we had a conversation earlier that, and you mentioned that you wanted to get into kickboxing as well, right?
Right.
Uh, so, is there a major difference in your preparation if you prepare for a kickboxing fight versus a Muay Thai fight? What goes to your mind when you do that?
There will have to be.
Hmm.
I will not be able to fight the same way in kickboxing, especially not against a high level opponent.
Right.
Against honestly a national champion or something like that, yeah, I can fight the same way and I'll be fine. But
Hmm.
against, let's say, fighting someone from Holland, no,
Right.
then that style won't work because the pace is much faster. In Muay Thai, you're used to a set pace. There's
Yes.
it's almost like a dance. There is a very set pattern to it. But in
Right.
kickboxing, it's 200 miles an hour from the time the bell goes. So they're
Right.
going to be bolting at you the entire time. And what happens in Muay Thai is, especially with guys like who charge forward, it happened with Naveen as well.
Hmm.
Kickboxers tend to not know to clinch. They tend to not know to elbow. Right?
Yeah.
So in a Muay Thai fight, you can always clinch them and you can always do a little bit of damage there. But
Right.
in boxing, there is no clinch, right? So
Hmm.
the big Muay Thai advantage that you have gets taken away completely.
Right.
Right? So then you're forced to box on the inside, you're forced to stay in the pocket. There's no clinch
Yeah.
to get away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he traps you in the corner, then you're stuck in the corner. You can't clinch
Right.
your way out, you can't elbow your way out, there's nothing, you're stuck. So
Right.
then there has to be a preparation difference. If there isn't, then uh, anybody, and myself included, will be in trouble.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, and which is why always surprises me when I see a lot of Muay Thai athletes nowadays, and this is thanks to one, they're able to grow across sports. And the Stam Fairtex, who was a kickboxing and a Muay Thai world champion, and she's going for the MMA world championship now. Uh, adjusting to the change of style has been incredible. The other aspect that one introduced was fighting with the 8-ounce gloves, right? Which is
Right.
normally not done in traditional Muay Thai. And there was a controversy, but I think finally Thailand has accepted that you can fight with those 8-ounce gloves.
Oh, you mean the 4 ounce gloves or the
Sorry,
8?
I'm sorry, the 4-ounce gloves. I'm sorry, the 4-ounce gloves,
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
8-ounce
yeah.
gloves. My
Yes,
bad,
yes.
my bad. Yeah. What is? Have you ever fought in 4-ounce gloves, and what's your take on
I've
that?
never even trained in 4 ounce gloves.
Okay,
I've never worn 4 ounce gloves. I don't even know what they feel like.
okay. So
Yeah,
that's not
but
something you want to deal with. Period.
yeah, but I would love to do it. It would be fun. It would make
Right,
clinching a lot easier. A lot
right.
easier. You
It
know?
would, and I noticed a lot of that was aimed towards the Burmese and the Cambodian athletes when it started because they have Kun Khmer, right? And there's always this fight between what is the origin of the sport? Is it Kun Khmer or is it Muay Thai? And
Yeah,
that controversy is always there. But they typically go bare knuckle, no gloves in their hand, maybe just a wrap, or
yes,
in fact, traditionally they would tie something like a rope or twine around their hands, and that's how they would fight.
yes.
Uh, Did you ever face or did you ever come across such athletes when you were training in Thailand, or was it pure Muay Thai?
I did, in fact. When I was training at Tiger Muay Thai,
Uh-huh.
you might obviously know the Lethwei world champion, right? Dave Leduc.
Yes. Hmm.
Right. So Dave Leduc, at the time, far, far ahead of me, he was training a lot longer than I was. I was very new to Muay Thai, but Dave Leduc was training at Tiger Muay Thai at the time.
Okay.
So I'd seen him train. I would see him, hit the coconuts with his head. I would see him headbutt the coconuts. I would see him, the wall pad, the uppercut pad. I would
Yeah.
see him hammer away that wall pad with his head because he was prepping for Lethwei.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but that's the only real experience I had of anybody from Lethwei or Hoopman. So that was basically just the two, no one
Right.
else.
Right.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
but he
And
was good.
yeah, and we obviously don't have that in India, and I don't think it's coming anytime soon because the moment
No,
that comes in, yeah, people are gonna hate that sport. I'm sure. People.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, bare knuckle boxing. I spoke to a few of the guests earlier, and I was about just bare knuckle boxing, and that was unthinkable for people.
right,
So yeah,
right.
this one would be the next level, right? It's
Yeah,
way beyond bare knuckle boxing. Yeah.
if bare knuckle boxing is unthinkable, then Lethwei is,
Yeah.
you can't even don't even want to consider it,
Right.
because it's honestly, it's just the rule set, the way the fight is fought, everything is just, it's far more brutal than I guess at least people in India are used to watching on TV. You're used to watching your MMA, you're used to watching your boxing, and now Muay Thai and kickboxing hopefully will keep
Right.
growing. But I don't think Lethwei will ever pick up because I think it's too niche a sport.
Right.
Yeah, group even
Yeah.
for me, man. I would think twice about it.
Right. No, even among combat sports, I totally agree with you. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Um, the other aspect I want to touch upon, right, apart from training itself, a big part of most combat sports is the weight cut. And typically in MMA, boxing, or even kickboxing, right, you have a month to 3 months of a notice of a pro fight, and people typically cut weight. Muay Thai, people who actually are fighting in Thailand or training in Thailand, they fight every 2 weeks, and
Right.
at the end of their career, they'll have 300 fights possibly, which is not unthinkable. It's fairly common out there.
Yes,
So
yes.
weight cuts are not the way we consider weight cuts in MMA, or kickboxing or boxing. When you were training out there, what kind of regime did you observe? Did people actually cut weight, or was it not there at all?
No, the weight cut, if at all there was a weight cut, it was basically a kilo and a half, maybe 2 kilos.
Okay,
That's
right.
it. So you just put on the sauna suit. You don't really have to water load or anything. Just sauna suit for a few hours, and
Hmm.
you're on weight.
Right.
Because obviously, as you said, number one is because you fight so often, you can't keep cutting weight. You can't cut weight 3 times a month. It's a bit
Yeah.
mad. And
Yeah.
also, the thing with Muay Thai is now, of course, one and other organizations have changed the weigh-in schedule, but it used to be same-day weigh-ins, right? You weigh in at 8 in the morning, you fight 8 in the night. So if you're cutting 7
Yes.
8 kilos of weight, you cannot refeed that 8 kilos. No way
Right.
you can refeed that amount. So when you get into the ring, you're severely dehydrated. That
Right.
means the KO is very likely to happen if you get hit on the chin. So
Right.
no, I didn't see a lot. It was a kilo and a half, 2 kilos. And even when I was fighting, it was 3 4 kilos max, not more.
Okay. How much do you cut now? Because you fought at 55 kgs, right? Right now.
Yeah, I fought the IBF title. I fought at 55 on the dot. For
Mm-hmm.
the WBC, I fought 55.3.
Yeah.
But my cut for the WBC, in fact, was a bigger cut. But it's roughly about 6.5 kilos.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
So
a normal cut for most fighters, but at my weight class, it's a big cut
yeah,
because I
as
walked
you
around with 51.
exactly as you go lower in weight, it gets more and more difficult to cut that much weight. I
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
understand that.
So my cuts are a little bit rough, but
Right.
also both these fights were very short notice. So
Mm.
if I have a longer camp, it's obviously not going to be so tough.
Right. And leading up to the WBC title, right? I believe there was Ramzan a month before that.
Yes.
And did that affect your training a lot?
You know, it's funny because I took the Shahada only very recently. So I've only just reverted to Islam. So I've never really done a Ramzan. I've
Oh, okay.
never had to fast. My first fast will be next year.
Oh, wow. I had
Yeah.
no idea. I had no
Yes.
idea about this. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. I was born into a Muslim family, but I never followed. But
Okay.
then over the last few months and last 6 months, I would say I really started to believe. No.
Okay. So,
So next year, hopefully, will be the next big cut.
okay. Uh, if you don't mind me, and you don't need to answer, but what led to this whole reintroduction to, or finding the faith again? Was there something that happened in your personal life, professional life? If you're comfortable sharing, you don't need to.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Not really in my professional life, but in my personal life, I would say, yeah. Maybe it's me, but at some point in my life, I felt like, whatever I was doing with my life, it just didn't seem enough.
Okay.
I didn't feel particularly at peace with myself. No, all the belts and all the success and everything, it just didn't feel like I was at peace. It always felt like I was on pins.
Okay.
And in my heart, I think it's even when I was a kid, I used to always I was always very touchy about Islam. Whenever somebody spoke, and I didn't believe for anything. I was raised in a very, it was a God fearing family, but not a religious one.
Right.
So, but I remember even as a kid, when someone said something bad about Islam, I was always like, what do you say? So
Mhm.
I knew there was always a part of me that was very strongly drawn to Islam. And over time, it's only gotten stronger and stronger. And today, I would say it's extremely strong. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
They say the best faith you can have is the one that if you find yourself, as opposed to the one imposed by either your parents or somebody else. So I'm glad you
Right.
found your faith, and
Thank you.
hope
Thank
that
you,
goes
bro.
very well for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Um. So, um, yeah. So we've gone on tangents here. I'm coming back to the Thailand story again, right?
Yes.
Um, one of the things that I am observing now, because a lot of people, including MMA fighters, go and now train in Thailand and do their camps out there for the MMA fights. And Tiger Muay Thai happens to be a favorite destination for a lot of UFC champions as well. But under the radar, a lot of times, we hear these gossips that people who go there also go there because there is a pill called Anavar, which allows them to cut weight and maintain their muscles, not without losing muscle, essentially.
Right.
And apparently that happens a lot, which is why a lot of these elite fighters prefer to do camps out there. And it has a short flushing out cycle, so it's never detected by the USADA.
Right.
Did you ever observe any such things out there, and what is your experience with people who use that?
Honestly, no. I've seen more of it in India than I've seen in Thailand. That's not to say there's more of it in India. It's just that I saw more of it in India as
Right,
opposed to in Thailand. Also because in India, I mean, you speak the language fluently. So if someone's speaking in Hindi or Marathi or English, you understand exactly what they're saying. Whereas in
right.
Thailand, unless you speak fluent Thai, even if
Can't.
they're talking about cheating right in front of your face, you probably just go right away.
Right,
You don't realize.
right,
But I never saw it. But I don't suspect anyone would do it openly anyway. So
right,
probably happens
right.
behind closed doors. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. So and that that concerns me. That and in India, unfortunately, people are not as educated, is what I would say, and people use stuff without realizing what they're using. To the point that I can still kind of understand of people getting an advantage in Muay Thai or MMA, but just sharing an example that I see. I went to a jiu-jitsu competition. That's not a major one, just a small Bangalore Open back in the day, and we found syringes outside the stadium, and it was very
Yeah.
apparent people were doping up for a jiu-jitsu competition, which is ridiculous. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and I will not name people, but I have grappled with people, and you can genuinely, and sometimes you can actually feel that the person is juiced up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very clear. So, have you ever fought such an opponent, and were you able to make out that the person is juiced up?
No, I've never fought anyone like that, but I've trained with guys like that for sure.
Okay.
Where a guy is walking around at my weight, he's
Hmm.
a couple of inches shorter than me. And because I'm pretty tall for my weight class, so a guy's like 5'4", 5'5", he's a few inches shorter than me.
Right.
And he's my weight. And
Right.
he feels twice as strong as me, three times as strong as me. I'm not particularly strong guy, but three times as strong as me, you could just move me around. No, you're on
Right.
something. You're on something for sure. No way you could do that. And it's not like I'm untrained or something. I know how to move around. I know how to clinch. So that you're obviously on
Right.
something. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's just wanted to touch upon that topic. Yeah, and if you are an athlete in India watching this show, right, and you see other people juicing up and are stronger than you don't need to juice up and be as strong as them, because that's not going to take them far. And that is my advice. Any advice that you have for young athletes watching this?
Exactly what you said. In
Mhm.
the end, the truth, you can't hide from the truth. It
Right.
comes out. It comes out, you know. Yeah, and
Hmm.
the thing is, the worst part about guys who juice up is that you can tell, they're mentally weak.
Right.
They're weak. That's why they need juice in the first place.
Right.
Someone who's got, mental fortitude doesn't need to do that stuff.
Right.
It's usually now I understand if you're rehabilitating an injury or something like that. Like for example, with McGregor when he broke his
Yeah.
shin bone, okay, or just using your this thing to rehabilitate that, I understand. But if you're
Right.
just training and just putting a needle in your butt, then well, yeah, no, you don't need to do that.
Right. No, McGregor's injury where your bones are broken and they have to be rebuilt, and he literally has titanium put inside to heal that.
Yeah,
That's a whole different story. You can't compare that to just trying to win a fight by juicing up. Yeah, that's entirely different. But yeah, it's ridiculous to see. Uh, but yeah, Kazan, are you still online? Because I seem to have lost you for a bit. Okay, we seem to have lost.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Go
you're
ahead.
back. You're back. Thanks. Yeah, so we lost you for a bit. But yeah, it's okay. I think I seem to have lost your camera feed.
Have you still?
I have lost your camera feed. If you can, maybe try to rejoin, that'll be great.
Yeah. Give me a second. Can you hear me?
Sure. I can hear you clearly. It's just your video stream that's gone off.
Hmm. Okay. I'm just going to re-enter. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So while we wait for Kazan to rejoin, and this is a very important topic that we touched upon. Um, you see even athletes in the UFC these days. After they retire, they lose a lot of their musculature, and they people say that it's because they've stopped training that they've lost their muscles. And for a lot of people, it may be true. But a lot of times, yes, it may be because of performance enhancing substances. And while this may give you an advantage in the for a few fights, over a long term, that's never going to help. So if you're an athlete watching this, please do stay away from performance enhancing drugs. Period. So while we wait for Kazan to join back in, I did. Okay, I think he is about to join in. There, we have Kazan back now. Perfect.
Sorry, my network's a little bit dodgy. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. And don't worry about this because this is not even the worst thing that has happened technically in my show. So we are good. We are perfectly fine.
Okay.
I once had a session with Govind Ale. I don't know if you know who Govind Ale is.
I don't.
Okay, one of the most prominent MMA fighters in the country, and we couldn't even get the video stream on. So the entire stream consisted of me talking and him on Instagram live, and people just hearing his voice through this. So we are good. We're good. I
Okay.
can see you. I can see your beautiful titles at the back. So we're good. We're good. Perfect. Um, right. So coming back to the topic of we touched upon the performance enhancing substances already, right? Now, when you take that out of the picture, I have fought in India, and I typically fight at a heavier weight class because I started heavy. I started at 185 pounds in MMA, and I stick to around that weight class in boxing and Muay Thai as well, right? So that's about 84 kgs, and in boxing I can go up to 90 kgs because that's the weight class. Unfortunately, that's about 200 pounds.
Right.
Um, when I came to the United States of America, um, I realized that there is a very big difference in the size of people fighting in my weight category out here compared to people fighting in Asia. One of the guys I fought a kickboxing match in a cage, the guy was 6'5" with a ridiculous reach. Right.
Uh,
Uh, you are tall for your weight class in India, but when you were out there training in Tiger Muay Thai, did you ever face other athletes who are a lot taller than you or with more reach at the same weight?
the same weight? No, not at 55.
Okay.
Not at 55. I've trained with a lot of bigger guys, yeah, but not fought a lot of bigger guys because at the weight class I am a little bit on the big side.
Right. So
Um,
yeah, I think you had an advantage. So I
yes,
think I think among Indians, right, you are one of you. I think you have a big advantage because you stayed at a lower weight class. A lot of people tend to go a little heavier, and that's partly to do with the diet, partly to do with the fact that the competition in India is not as well tuned. So we typically don't realize that we are fighting at a wrong weight class. Uh, or that is my opinion. What is your opinion on this entire scenario?
uh, I don't
Like
know.
if
I
yeah, if you were to like you're a coach as well, right? If you were to give a weight class to one of your students, what goes through your mind?
The first thing that goes through my mind is you have to make the weight cut reasonable and should almost be seamless for your fighter. You
Okay,
know,
so what
it-
does reasonable look like for you? Because it can be different for different people. Yeah,
fair enough. So a lot of my fighters are like first time fighters. They're fighting for their second or third amateur fight or their first pro fight. They're not
right,
used to cutting weight.
right,
They're quite it's quite an alien concept to them. Then you make a kid like that who's never fought before, cut 8 kilos, and then after the 8 kilo cut, he now has to step into a ring which he has never done before. He's as it is petrified.
right,
The last thing you need to do is give him more grief before he gets petrified.
right,
So make the cut as reasonable as possible, make it as seamless as possible. So maybe like a 2 or 3 kilo cut
hmm,
where you can literally take that out and water weight. You don't really have to adjust your diet very much. As long as you water load well in time, it'll happen naturally.
right.
You know,
And
especially
this
earlier.
right, and this concept of water loading, a lot of people in India don't understand what water loading is. And they'll nod their head, but they have no clue. So, what is your regime of water loading? Could you just tell people so people have an idea?
Yeah. Okay. So let's say I'm making weight on a Friday, fights on Saturday.
Right.
So I'll tell you how I did it for the WBC title.
Sure.
So the previous Saturday, so 6 days prior,
Hmm.
I basically doubled my water intake. My water intake is about 3.5 to 4 liters a day.
Right.
So I doubled it up to about, well, not double, but probably about 7 liters.
Hmm.
And then I stuck with seven, and then I bumped it up to eight, and then nine, which was overkill in retrospect. I probably should not have gone that high.
Right.
So went up to almost nine, and then I started to taper off down to about five, three, 1.5, and then nothing for almost 16 hours.
Right.
And
Okay.
then that was bad. The day
Right.
when I was in Bangalore, when I got
Yeah.
to Bangalore, that day was very, very bad. Till I made weight, then was great.
Yeah. The last day is always horrible. Yeah, because your body is
Oh,
still in the flushing mode, and you
worse.
feel like you're dying. You feel like everything is pathetic. You hate the world. Yeah, so,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 5 days is 100 times better than weigh-in day. 100 times better.
right. Yeah, so I'm glad to hear that because I have a similar regimen like yours. But the first day when you start water loading, you hate the last day, but I also hate the first day because when you're drinking so much water, you don't want to after a point of time. After the first 2 or 3 liters, your body is like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you
yeah.
keep adding more and more and more, and the last couple of liters are like a nightmare sometimes to finish. And you sometimes you don't have enough hours in the day to finish, and unless you time your water intake, that goes horrible for you.
That's absolutely correct. You
Right.
should literally do it by the clock. That's the only way to do it and get it done in time. If it's a
Right.
liter per 2 hours, then it should be a liter per 2 hours and nothing less than that.
Right. your rehydration, what does that look like?
My rehydration. So the thing is, I don't. In the past, I handled all my weight cuts myself.
Hmm.
But the last two fights for these two, one of my students who happens to be a very good strength and conditioning coach.
Uh-huh.
So he basically has handled my cut for me, and
Okay.
his knowledge of diet and water loading, how to shred weight, because he works with a lot of models,
Hmm.
male models especially, who need to just drop those three kilos at least in water really fast, so they lean out and they
Right.
look good on camera, right? So he's
Right.
used to working with guys like that.
Hmm.
So my water reload, I don't over stress about it. I just
Hmm.
try to take in as much as I can without getting full. Because I find once I get full, then it becomes a problem.
Right.
Because then instead of eating, which is what you should be doing, you're just drinking water. And by the
Right.
time fight day comes along, you have no energy left because you've just been drinking essentially 7 kilos of water instead of the right amount of food and water.
Right. Right. Now I'm glad you touched upon that because this is something that I did not realize till I came to the US, and a guy very plainly told me that your body will not absorb more than 1 liter of water per hour.
Right.
Don't go to guzzle it down. It doesn't matter. Have your food, have your calories, have your nutrition. But the one advice he gave me was to make sure I'm not just drinking water. I'm drinking electrolytes along with it, because apparently
Right.
that helps me get pumped up as well and get the fluid back into the muscles. That's the only advice, and it worked brilliantly for me. I cut about 16 pounds in a week for the last fight, and
Wow.
it came back immediately, which is fair enough for my weight class. It's not a big cut.
Right.
Yeah,
But it's still a big amount to put back in. So if
it
you
is.
do it
It is.
intentionally, it comes back in correctly. It's good.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, for a low weight, it's more difficult. And in India, I've seen people do ridiculous stuff. Like people don't water load, but they will have dehydration tablets a couple of days
Oh,
before to make weight, and then try to rehydrate. Which I keep telling them it doesn't work. They said, "नहीं हमने तो wait कर लिया." I'm like, "ठीक है, you'll weigh in for a couple of fights. What will happen after that?" And people don't realize it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So we need coaches like you, and I'm glad you also, although you are experienced, getting that help when you find somebody better equipped to handle this, it is very important.
Really important. You can't do it all yourself. That's the one thing
Right.
I've realized, especially in the fight business. You cannot do it all yourself. You know,
Right.
it's just too much of a. There's too much to worry about as is, without you having to worry about your weight cut, without you having to worry about your strength and conditioning, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm a martial artist. Strength and conditioning is not my area of expertise, and nutrition is not my area of expertise. So what's the point of me worrying? What I'll do a terrible job if
Right.
I figure it out myself.
Right.
Let someone else do it who's better.
Makes sense. Now, I'm glad you brought up the strength and conditioning part, because that is also important for me, because while you're a martial artist, a lot of your time is taken up by skill based training, because you need to keep your skills sharp, which leaves very little time sometimes to actually work on strength and conditioning. Yes, your martial arts training does help in that, but sometimes you have to focus only on strength. You have to hit the gym, you have to hit weights. What does your regime look like in that?
I'll, so let's say for the last couple of fights,
Hmm.
because they've been kind of short notice fights, there's been
Right.
literally no strength and conditioning. I've done nothing because
Right.
it's been entirely about sparring and bag work. I mean, for
Right.
the IDF title here, all I
Hmm.
did was I just did bag work because I didn't have sparring partners at the time because it was like 13 days or 12 days notice. So I had
Wow.
no
Okay.
sparring partners. So I was
Right.
just doing bag work because I find bag work is the best way to prepare for a fight, especially with respect to your endurance. Really
Right.
good way. Because it's
Right.
constantly working on anaerobic respiration. So it's really
Yes.
good for you. And a fight is going to be anaerobic. It's not a marathon. It's going to be a lot of stop start, stop start. So you need bag work as opposed to
Right.
going for a jog.
Right. Right.
Right? And for the WBC fight, all I did was spar. I
Mm.
sparred 4 or 5 times a week. That's it.
Right.
And that's how I prep for it. But in an ideal world, yeah. Now, right now, when I'm not in a camp, I am
Mhm.
working strength. I am working my strength endurance specifically.
Right.
So it's lighter weights, but you're pushing around a lot more reps, or you're jogging a little bit more, or swimming, or cycling, or whatever. Working the
Mhm.
aerobic respiration system as well as the anaerobic.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm very glad you brought up both the bag work and the sparring. And ideally you need a combination of both when you're leading up to a camp, because sparring keeps you sharp, and bag work obviously works on skills and your endurance and your conditioning for the actual fight. Uh, But one thing I realized, with sparring, and I've been more selective about who I spar with because I'm a heavier weight, and typically, and this happens in the US as well. People in a martial arts gym are not as heavy as me, and this is even in the US. They are a lot lighter.
Right.
Sparring with them versus sparring with somebody my own weight is a very different prospect because the way they move, their endurance, their conditioning itself, and also the style differs massively. Uh,
Hmm.
what is it for you? I mean, have you faced that issue? Because at a lighter weight, I'm assuming you will face a similar dilemma because there won't be as many people as light as you as well because you're the other spectrum.
Yeah, yeah. No, that is true. I do have a. It is a bit of a struggle to find good sparring partners, but luckily over the last two camps, okay, especially in the WBC camp, I had one of my main sparring partners now for all my future fights. The guy's name is Sahil Baperkar.
Okay.
Brilliant, brilliant. He's kickboxing. He's a K1 Pro champion in India,
Wow.
65, 60 and 65. So,
Okay.
and pro. So he's very, very good. So Sahil
Mhm.
is a brilliant sparring partner. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a struggle to find good 60-kilo fighters. You'll find a lot of bad ones,
Yeah.
but the good ones are a problem. Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah.
Right. And this is something that I keep telling people, and people don't understand. People think that they can spar with anybody they can find, and it doesn't work that way. If you know who your opponent is, and unless you find someone who can replicate the way he moves or the way he's gonna fight, sparring is not gonna help. It And sometimes sparring can be negative for you because you may bring in bad habits into the fight, and that can cost you the fight. Right. Uh,
100%.
right. So, one thing I wanted to ask you is, have you ever been injured in any fight? Has anything happened that was cause concern, concussion, anything?
No, no. Worst I've ever had in the fight was broken ribs. But my
Okay.
ribs broke in one fight. But that's I think one of my ribs broke. The
Okay.
other one cracked and one broke. But that's the worst. I mean, aside from the basic stuff, the broken nose, that's all kind of part of it. But you know,
Mhm.
but the worst I ever had in a fight was the broken ribs. Thank
Right.
God.
The fact that you and I are talking that broken nose is fairly normal. It's-
Yeah.
I love that fact. So that is awesome. But yeah, it's part of the game. If you are training for combat sports, you will get hit in the nose, and at some point it will break. So
If
yeah.
you go through your career without breaking your nose, you're a lucky, lucky boy. You should be thrilled with life.
Right. More than lucky, I would say it's very suspect, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's call it
probably.
lucky. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, I great. So no concussions ever.
Nothing, nothing. Touch wood,
Uh,
nothing.
glad. So yeah, let's hope that stays in the future.
Yeah,
Uh,
well,
right. So you are in your 30s right now, right? You
I'm
have about, I
33.
would say, 33. Yeah. Uh, how long do you expect to continue fighting, or have you kept an age in mind, or you're just gonna see how it pans along?
Till I get the world title behind me. As soon as I
Okay.
get that, I'll retire.
जैसे वर्ल्ड टाइटल आ गया हो गया 10
Yeah,
बस
I'll remove this painting and I'll put a world title up there, and then that'll be that. And then I'll retire.
Oh man.
No, but there is no real. Honestly, I have not really thought of an age. I mean, I'm not being stupid. I don't think I'm going to fight when I'm 45. But I do suspect the way I take care of myself, I would think 36, 37 should be no problem.
Got it.
Yeah,
Nice.
because there's not much wear and tear on my body.
Right.
Because I don't just watch the way I live. I also watch the way I fight. That is more important to watch the way you fight, especially if you're a fighter. You need to fight intelligent. You can't fight like a maniac or a
Right.
moron and then expect to go into your 40s or late 30s. You won't be able to.
Right.
Your chin will just give out. Your body will have. Your joints will be in like complete agony by the end. Especially in Muay Thai, your knees and your elbows, your forearm, everything gets shot to pieces.
Right. I mean, I see Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman is the MMA fighter, right? He
Yeah, yeah,
lost
yeah.
the welterweight title, but I don't know if you're aware of this. Apparently, he cannot walk up and down stairs because
Ah, that's
his knees are screwed
yeah,
completely.
I guess the cartilage is just gone.
It's all gone, yeah. And like you said, these things happen. But
Yeah.
other end of the spectrum, right? I mean, we would expect Muay Thai athletes to get a lot more wear and tear because they fight a lot more. They have like 200, 300 fights. And then we have Senchai, right? He's
Yeah,
45, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and he's still fighting strong. It's ridiculous watching him, right?
He's amazing. Just skill wise, he's just amazing. His intelligence is the main thing. You can just see it's a supercomputer versus a human being in
Yeah,
the ring. You're just not on the same play. It's like playing chess with a grandmaster.
right,
You can't beat him. You
right,
won't be able to beat him. Not on skill. You have to wait for him to get really, really old. That's how you beat him.
right. So for
Mhm.
me, right, Sanchai always reminded me of kind of like Muhammad Ali, but he had better defense than Muhammad Ali because Muhammad Ali got hit a lot as well. And then we
True.
have Bukau. Bukau reminded me of Mike Tyson, just brutally destroying opponents, but the Muay Thai version of it. And we
True.
always wished they faced each other, and apparently now they are facing each other in a bare knuckle Muay Thai fight in November.
Are they?
That
There
yes,
were talks about this. Did they get confirmed?
it is confirmed. BKFC Asia is putting it up in November. They're looking for the event is looking for sponsors now, but it's announced. They've signed the contract. It's just a matter of getting the event on the you know basically
Right.
getting sponsors on board. So today the post went out, so it looks like it is confirmed. But
Okay.
in your opinion, how do you think this fight would go? Especially since it's bare knuckle, who do you think it
Yes.
favors more?
I guess I think I would think it favors workout
Hmm.
for a
Right.
couple of reasons. I think I could be wrong about this. I think number one, he's probably heavier
He is,
than
yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
they're gonna have the weight classes, so they're gonna get close to each other in weight. But still, yeah,
Right, right.
he's heavier
But I
and taller.
think yeah, workout used to fight in K1 Max, right? That was 77 kilos. He fought with
Yeah,
Mickey Holstein at 77.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I know Sancha is not that big.
Right.
So
He's not.
that's one.
Mhm.
So I assume he would hit a lot harder than Sancha would hit.
Right.
Plus I would say he's got youth as well, which I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure I'm right on. He's younger than Sanchai, so
He is. He
I don't
is.
know. I don't know. But they're also very good friends, so I don't know why they're fighting each other at all. That doesn't make any
And
sense to me.
so this is something that I noticed in Thailand that you may be the best fighter in the world, but people in Thailand, even after they are world champions, they don't make enough money, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the way the sport, and it's not just Muay Thai. There is I don't know how to pronounce his name, Shri Monk or someone. He was the WBC boxing world champion multiple times in a row. One of the
Hmm.
best boxers to come out of Thailand, right?
Right.
And he's still working like a normal trainer. And in fact, he had to come back to bare knuckle boxing after he retired out of boxing at a heavier weight. And he's the BKFC Asia champion. And this is a boxing WBC world champion at one point of time,
Right.
multiple years. So I don't know. So I'm assuming it's possibly the same with Senchai and Bukau. Maybe they haven't really earned enough of a purse. But
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it's probably just a way to. It's almost like not to make it sound bad, but it's sort of like a cash grab. You
right,
kind of make as much money as possible, and then at least you can retire with some form of comfort.
right, right.
Yeah.
And out there, in Thailand, you don't need much to retire, but even getting that is not easy sometimes, even if you're the best
No,
fighter out there.
it's
Right,
not. It's not.
right.
Because
So, but yeah,
you start out fighting, you get paid peanuts. Peanuts.
right.
The first fight I fought, I got paid 1,200 baht.
Okay,
Pro fight, like 1,200
right.
baht, which is,
Yeah.
and out of 1,200, 600 goes to your gym. So you get 600 baht at the end of the fight. It's really bad. You
Right.
know.
Okay, so for the Indian audience, what is that in rupees? 600 baht is how many rupees?
At the time, it was 2,400 rupees.
Right. So that's for a professional
No,
Muay
no,
Thai
no.
fight.
1,200 baht is 2,400 rupees.
Yeah. So you got 1,200 rupees at the end of it after.
1,400. Yeah.
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 Was
So yeah,
two good
that's
meals. That's what I got at the end of it. Two slightly expensive meals.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's how it is out there, and it's a brutal sport. It's a brutal game, but it's part of their culture, which is why they love it. Which is why some of the best Muay Thai athletes come out of there, even if the pay is shit. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it should be. Um, we are almost up to an hour. I would love to keep talking with you, but yeah, I have so much more to talk, but I wouldn't take more of your time. But before we end this stream, Is there anything you want to share with the audience for the young athletes watching?
Just my advice to them.
Anything that you want to share, something about you, anything that you want people to know, whatever.
No, I don't think I need to tell people any more about me. I've told them enough. Now I think I should keep a mouth shut about myself. Um, but I would, if I could give any advice to at least the youth, especially in India, because
Hmm.
India is home, and
Right.
it would be a dream to see Indian fighters at the very top. Where
Hmm.
we are the ones who are, let's say, the hunted ones. Right now, we're
Right.
all hunting for everyone else, and
Hmm.
when the world is when the world suddenly looks to us as the best guys, if that would be a dream for me, I would love for that to happen. My
Right.
advice to them would be: first, you have to trust in your own country, trust in your own people, trust in your friends, your teammates. You We have more than enough good fighters.
Right.
We don't have to always run to Germany or run to Thailand or run somewhere else. You have good fighters in your own country. I look at Bombay itself, and Mumbai has a fair amount of decent fighters, so you
Right.
can be fine. But also another piece of advice that I would give is preparation is very important when you're preparing for a fight. It's
Hmm.
very very important to not neglect that preparation. It's important.
Right.
Do exactly
Great.
what you should do.
Perfect. Brilliant advice. Thanks for that. I'm sure a lot of people watching would love to hear this advice and hope they follow this advice. And on that note, I would be ending the show. Thank you so much, Kazan, for joining us.
Thank you, brother.
And
I appreciate it.
right.
Thanks.
And to everybody else watching, next week we're going to be back with the Inside Scoop, where I will get an official, not an athlete, an official on this program. So thank you again for joining us, and I'll catch you again next week. Thanks, Kazan.